Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality in a way that is extremely empowering. Speaking of exploring powerful perspectives, I'm super excited to announce the release of my very first book, The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. If you're ready to alchemize the circumstances in your life so that your abundance expands to an entirely new level in 2021, head over to goldenkey.gift to download the audio or ebook as my gift to you by using the code POSITIVEHEAD. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share, I'm very excited to have Dr. Mark Mincolla here with me on the show. Mark is a nutritional therapist and quantum energy healer who has transformed the lives of more than 60,000 patients over the last 35 years. Mark has also authored 7 books, including his latest, The Way of Miracles, which he also made into an award-winning documentary. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Great to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. I am excited to dive in, and I would like to start with the very cliche opening question I always like to ask, and it is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
Passion is soul love. Love from source. Love from source, eternal love. I think there's so many different ways to think about love, obviously, but there's only one way to really think about love, and that's from the soul, from the source.
Yeah. I like to say that's what source is at its base, is it's love, and everything else is happening as a sort of a sideshow prop in support of that truth.
Exactly.
So, if you would, I know your story is a fascinating one that has definitely led you to walk the talk, if you will. I read a bit about it in your most recent book, The Way of Miracles, and I'd love if you could to share, whatever you feel is relevant, in regards to your backstory.
Well, Brandon, I started planning and mapping out a film and a book, The Way of Miracles, about 4 years ago. And I met the producer of the film, who was then going to be the producer of the film. And Christina Versillo Bresson is the producer. I met her in New York about 4.5, 5 years ago. My son, actually, one of my sons introduced us. And so we mapped out the book, mapped out the film, had some great visions and great ideas, great concepts for telling miracle stories from patients in documentary format. So the patients who went through cancer, end stage cancers, had tumors that disappeared, things like that. Great stories, amazing stories. We were planning on having the patients tell their stories. We needed amazing stories with amazing storytellers, and we found that. But in the process of all that, we were surprised out of the blue. I was bit by a Lyme tick, by a deer tick, and I was diagnosed with Borrelia Lyme disease. Neuroborrelia has all the markings of Parkinson's. It's a neurological attacking bacteria, spirochete bacteria, spiral bacteria. And I was bit by a poisonous tick. And I went down really fast and really hard, in the middle of planning this film. And at one point, I was having a difficult time walking, having a difficult time standing up. And I was having a very difficult time, the lack of strength in my legs, lack of balance in my brain was horrible. So I got to the point where, this is about 3.5, 4 years ago, I couldn't walk. And one night I was fighting to try to keep my legs moving, trying to fight to keep myself walking and moving as best I could, which was a pathetic sight. But I fell to the ground in the bathroom on a hard tile floor, hit my head pretty hard, and I was paralyzed for 2 weeks. At the time, I didn't know how long I was going to be paralyzed for. I couldn't move anything. I couldn't move anything at all.
Wow.
So for two
Wow.
weeks, I was being carried to the bathroom every night, and it was a mess. It was a total mess. I spent a week in the hospital, a week in the rehab center. It was a horrible situation, but I had to decide how I felt at that time about making this movie and writing this book. Was I up to presenting this movie in this film, in this book rather, from a wheelchair? Was I up to that? And it got to an even deeper point. I was on the floor for 14 and a half hours. Nobody knew I was there. I was screaming for help, etc., etc. It was a mess. But I remember thinking to myself, I'm not sure if I'm going to be paralyzed for the rest of my life. I don't know. This just for all I know, this is the new way. For all I know, this is my life from here on out. And I had to ask myself, am I prepared not just to perform, not just to introduce the world to the book and the film? Do I want to live? Do I want to live like this? It was an incredibly daunting question, and I didn't have an answer. So about an hour into my asking that question to myself and really meditating on it on the floor, thinking on the bathroom floor about it, I finally started screaming for help. I started screaming to the top of my lungs for help. And only at that point did I know that I wanted to live. So I didn't know I wanted to live until I started screaming for help inadvertently. So I knew that I was ready for whatever I had to go through. But it was a horrible situation. As I said, I went through 2 weeks of being paralyzed. For all I knew, I was going to be paralyzed the rest of my life. Nobody knew. The doctors didn't know. The specialists that came to see me didn't know. But I turned it around. I went through some serious shifting and changing and transformational quantum leaping in my brain and my mind, my heart. And I decided that I was going to live, and I decided I was going to actually move into a higher consciousness, a higher realm, a higher level of awareness. And I was going to dedicate myself to that consciousness shift. I was going to dedicate myself to the book and the film, regardless of how I presented it. And I actually turned my life around. I worked really hard with herbs, natural medicines, traditional medicines, physical therapy. I worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. And I turned it around, and I'm fully functional again. That was my miracle.
That is incredible. That is incredible to be. It's one of those things you probably had no idea when you were signing up to write a book on miracles and overcoming this stuff that you would be, the main subject of the book. And wow, that's an incredible story.
And that's why
Of
chapter one in the book is
perseverance.
entitled My Unexpected Miracle.
Yeah, right. So you mentioned something there that jumped out at me, pun intended. You said quantum leaping. And of course, the book is about accessing your superconscious. So I'd love to dive right in and hear, what your thoughts are on, first off, what is the superconscious? And yeah, we'll start there.
Well, we operate generally out of the conscious mind's properties. We also have a subconscious, an unconscious, and a superconscious. We have 4 different states. I call them states. But the conscious mind is our day to day mind. And it's up to producing 2,000 bits it can process 2,000 bits of information per second. The subconscious mind, the unconscious mind, can produce 400 billion bits of information per second. So there's a deep inner reservoir of wisdom, knowledge, and memory that we all have that is truly remarkable. But the superconscious, a little bit different. It's when we move into a higher realm of frequency, vibration in our thought processes, when we take our mind to its deepest place. I say it's a combination of taking your consciousness, your awareness, and merging it with the universal mind. So there's a universal mind, there's a universal consciousness. The universe is consciousness. So by taking our local consciousness at the highest level and merging it with the great awareness that we are surrounded by, the sea of awareness that we're surrounded by, you're blending the two properties. By blending your consciousness with the universal consciousness, you enter into what I call the realm of pure consciousness or super consciousness. So that's how I define super consciousness. And I think that the way we attain, the way we reach that level of awareness, which, by the way, is where miracles are. That's the key point of it. That people, everybody, show of hands, how many people want to experience miracles? Everybody's got their hands up. So the key here is everybody wants to experience miracles, but the key to access those miracles is to operate at a superconscious level. So your superconsciousness is where miracles naturally reside, the highest realm of frequency, vibration, and awareness. So by tapping in, meditating deeply, by doing trance work, deep prayer, contemplation, working on just accessing your pure essence, your pure, the essence of your awareness. That's where miracles are. So I think the objective is to tap into the what I refer to as the identity crisis. There's a spiritual identity crisis that keeps us from being regular purveyors of miracles. So the spiritual identity crisis is all about thinking and believing that we are what the culture has programmed us to believe that we are. Personalities, egos, male, female, et cetera, et cetera. So to me, we're not just those things. We're not just those material, cellular, mechanistic representations of self. The eternal part of what we are is source. It's soul. The eternal part of what we are is the everlasting consciousness, the everlasting energy, the everlasting love. So I think that by coming to grips with that identity crisis and by acknowledging and emanating from that higher place. So working on it. It's like, okay, I know I'm in the material form here for a short while, but each day, each moment that goes by my life, I have the potential and the properties by which I can actually emanate from that source, from that essence, that pure essence. And in so doing, I'm actually operating at my true identity level. And I think that consciousness enables us to operate at a true identity level and allow us to be immersed in the sea of miracle possibilities.
Yeah, I love that. It's, you know, would you agree that we are, one way to start shifting your perspective in regards to who and what you are is, I found as thinking more of myself and, doing the best I can to drop the ego identities and the stories and, tap into the realization that even as I speak now, I'm an energetic emanation, right? Energetic vibration in motion, a process, if you will. Would you agree with that?
100%. Yeah, first of all, I think we start from the perspective that everything is energy. Werner Heisenberg won the Nobel Prize in 1937 for teaching us that the universe is 99.999% energy and 0.001% matter. So he made it pretty clear as he was developing his quantum mechanics theorems that the starting point here is to awaken to the reality that everything is energy. What we see is what we think we see. What we think we see is purely material. And we're only seeing the residue that actually is immersed in fields of energy. So everything is energy. That's our starting point. And energy vibrates at different frequencies. Some energy vibrates at a higher frequency, some at a lower frequency. So in our case, we have a choice, free will, freedom of choice that says we can actually emanate from our higher frequencies, our higher vibrational frequencies, or our lower. Or as I say, we can inadvertently be negative, reactionary, or positive, actionary. So we can either be conscious, positive action, or unconscious, negative reaction. That's the vibrational differential right there.
Yeah, it's choosing to be proactive instead of reactive, right?
It's consciously proactive.
Choosing how you will show up in the situation prior to any stimulus that would maybe for many people elicit some sort of a reaction. You've sort of like held fast to how you're showing up regardless of external circumstances, right? Yeah. So yeah, I think that is such a powerful, simple but powerful way to start shifting our realities. Is like, you know, this redefining or dropping away a lot of these constructs that we've been handed. Mother, father, son, friend, student, poor, rich, fat, skinny, whatever these labels that we've been given, really aren't our identity at all. It's that's just something that's sort of masking.
If you think about it, form is an illusion,
Yeah.
and those are all form-based concepts.
Yep.
So that's where the illusion. That's where the illusion actually leads you.
Yeah. Right. 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 Just has you grabbing at smoke and mirrors, if you will. Uh, so,
Exactly.
you mentioned that you said earlier quantum leaping, and you know, I think of this when I hear that term. Well, first I think of the show from the '80s, Quantum Leap, and then I think of this idea that a lot of people talk about of sort of shifting timelines with vibrationally with our vibrational offerings, and this idea that there are many timelines from or potentials from any now moment forward, and we sort of navigate in and out of those with our vibration. I like to say you be it to see it, right? And so I'm curious, when you use the word quantum leaping, what you're referring to, and if you sort of agree with that perspective that we are constantly shifting potential realities with our vibration.
I think it's a matter of allowing our vibration to emanate from the multidimensional, as opposed to the 3D limitations. And I think that we live in a multidimensional universe, and we have the ability to take a giant step in the direction of our source, if you will, that is anything but mundane. So
Hmm.
it's transcending the mundane. It's going into um, the realm of higher vibration. It's leaping above, leaping beyond the the void.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm curious what your have you had personal experiences sort of tapping into the superconscious in a way that creates a mystical experience?
Experience. Yeah, I think for me, the whole concept of the book and the movie, and the whole concept of miracle making started with my work and having patients who are terminally ill. And I mean, I see terminally ill people every day, and I have for 37 years. And when you work with the terminally ill, it changes you. It forces you to raise your game, and it forces you to elevate your awareness, your hope, your vibration of faith. And it's like I think when you spend enough time with enough people that are looking over the void, anticipating dying. I mean, really anticipating any moment not being here.
Yeah.
They change you. They changed me radically. So my patients were my teachers. They challenged me to look beyond the dimensions that are more obvious. And they challenged me to follow them in a way through their process. I can't physically follow them, but I follow them energetically. And I think that started the whole process, inspiring the miracle making books and film. They were the inspiration. They were the teachers. They were the reason why it happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And have you had a lot of them, e- you know, experience miraculous healings that were like, you know, sure they were on their way out and then, you know,
No question
completely
about it. No
bounced back?
question about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely true. I mean, we in the film we actually have several interesting stories. There's one story about a woman who came here from Russia, 37 years old, and she had a brain tumor the size of a golf ball. And she tells a story about how she went for surgery and they cut open her skull. They pulled the tumor out and they put her back together. And then in 2 months, the tumor grew back. So she was determined not to go through that again. She said, if I don't make it through, I don't make it through, but I'm not going to go through that surgery again. It's too harrowing, it's too depleting, it's too draining, it's too challenging, too stressful. Can't do it. So we worked hard and we pulled together a program. I do a lot of energy work, and I actually put my hand right where the tumor was, and I energetically dialogued off her tumor. And that's muscle testing for those who don't know. And I believe you can actually pick up energy, pick up information, and dialogue with what I call the
Hmm.
pain point. Wherever the problem is, you go to the problem. That's where the
Hmm.
body's drawing a lot of its attention. The body's drawing so much attention to that pain point that you can energetically tap into it. So I tapped into her pain point. I found that wheat in particular was just overwhelmingly negative. I mean, incredible. I mean, I tried everything. I
Huh.
tried sugar, egg yolks, egg whites, peanuts. I tried everything imaginable. Nothing was like wheat. Nothing was like wheat. Wheat was just markedly, decisively negative energetically for her. Her strength just
Hmm.
obliterated, just completely wiped out, totally wiped out.
Well.
So I got her off the wheat, put on an overall healthy dietary program, put her on some supplements. But the main key to everything, in my opinion, with her was getting her off the wheat. So her got her off all those negative foods, especially the wheat, like I said. And in 5 months, the tumor vanished. She's been tumor free for 9 years.
Wow. Incredible. Incredible. So you use with your patients a form of muscle testing, and that's how you sort of determine that wheat was the issue.
That's exactly right. I developed a system, and there's many different types of muscle testing. There's one I developed called EMT, electromagnetic muscle testing. And the
Hmm.
EMT method is a simple way to dialogue with the energy field of different voids on the body, and it's quite telling. It's quite impressive. But that's what I used with her, and I tapped into the wheat issue pretty swiftly. It didn't take long at all.
Hmm. Wow. Is electromagnetic muscle testing something that is simple enough that you could explain to the listeners how they
Sure
could
it
do
is.
it
Sure it is.
themselves?
Yeah, of course, of
That'd be
course.
great.
Yeah, I think first of all, you're using a relative differential. So the relative differential is strength. Either your arm is strong or your arm is weak. That's your relative differential. So you have the patient put one arm up parallel to the ground, straight out, and you tug on the wrist with a light little pull. You don't muscle it too hard. You want an indicator. That's all, just a pure indicator. So you tug on the wrist just to see what the strength resistance is. And then what you can do is you can actually take different foods. You can put a little bit of food under the tongue sublingually. You could take a food vial, like an food allergy vial that has liquid drops, put a drop under the tongue of wheat, dairy, whatever. Or you can actually have them just hold the food close to their heart. So in her case, I had her hold wheat to her heart and checked her resistance while I was putting pressure on the pain point. The pain point, as I said, is where the tumor was. So by tapping into the pain point, exposing the body to a food, she gets a marked reaction. But I tell patients this, your listeners, here's the thing. You don't have to have a food. You don't have to have a vial of drops. You can actually just mention the food. You call out that food. You call out wheat, eggs, dairy, whatever. Call the food out verbally, and you get a super strong reading on that. So again,
Wow.
go to the pain point, tug on the arm, and call out the food. If the food has a
Hmm.
positive reaction, you get a strong differential muscle resistance. If it's negative, you get a weak response. And like I said, with the wheat, with her
Mm-hmm.
in her case, it was so decisive. It was incredible, remarkably
Yeah.
different.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, it's like so I'm clear then you'd have someone that's helping you to test, right? So
Sure.
maybe holding one if I had a piece of bread or even write the word out, right? Would be another way to do it and hold that close to my heart in one hand and then let's say in my case, getting sort of eczema across the bridge of my nose a little bit sometimes,
Yes.
holding my fingers there with, the substance to my heart, and then the other hand here. Well, I guess I would have to have one free to be tested, right? So maybe the other person would
That's correct.
touch the
That's
point.
correct. That's right.
Okay. So,
So you could actually do this. You could actually just have your arm up, take the wheat, like you just pointed out, hold the wheat close to your eczema, and
mm-hmm.
then you can have me trying to tug on your arm,
Yeah.
and you get the differential of strength versus weakness. We tried different things. We tried blueberries,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, wheat, um, celery, whatever. You can actually
Hmm.
check the resistance for each one of those things, and your body is loud and
Interesting.
clear, super loud and clear. Um, there's a number of different. I've written 7 books, as you pointed out earlier. The number 5 book that I wrote is called Whole Health. Whole Health. And in Whole Health, I detail in absolute specific account what the muscle testing is all about, how it works, how you do it. There's graphic illustrations and all that. So Whole Health tells you in detail how to work that. Pretty fascinating.
Great. Yeah, it really is. It's I was first exposed to um, kinesiology and muscle testing, and I'm sure you're familiar with David Hawkins' Power versus Force.
For sure, I love it. Great book.
Yeah, really, really great. I think it's fascinating in that book how he has this different levels of, um, sort of
Everything.
emotions. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
he
he
checks
sort of rates
words.
them.
He checks religions. He checks words. He does everything. It's
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah, really, really is fascinating. Um, wow. So um, let's talk a little bit more since we just touched on food and the importance of food, and we've this idea that food is medicine. Obviously, this has been a big part of your journey and work. I'd love to hear what wisdom you have to share about that.
Well, for one thing, you want to start from the perspective of 72% of all disease is influenced, if not caused, by inflammation. Chronic inflammation is centrally involved in all sickness and disease. Chronic inflammation. There's 150 autoimmune diseases. And again, most of them are inflammatorily influenced. So when you think about disease, whether it's inflammatory, autoimmune, you want to think in terms of how you can actually anti-inflame the chemistry of the body to put it in better position to heal. So there's 3 different categories, 3 different columns, 3 different pathways. The first pathway is PGE1. PGE1 is prostaglandin 1. The second pathway is prostaglandin 2. Third pathway is prostaglandin 3. Prostaglandin 1 is neutral. It's a neutral pathway chemically. Prostaglandin 2 is an inflammatory pathway. And that actually has a number of different foods that produce fatty acids that produce hormonal inflammation. Inflammation takes place at a hormonal level. So the foods listed there: peanuts, red meat, egg yolks, sugar, dairy products. Those are
Hmm.
the main inflammatories. They
Hmm.
produce high concentration of a fatty acid called arachidonic acid. So arachidonic acid comes from those foods again: peanuts, red meat, dairy, yolks, egg yolks, not whites, sugar. Those are the primary arachidonic acid foods. Those arachidonic acid foods produce prostaglandin 2 inflammation or COX-2 hormone activity. They produce things like leukotriene B4s, thromboxane A2s, lipoxins, hydroxylated fatty acids, all these bad guys. So these chemistries can be avoided by avoiding those foods. The anti-inflammatory pathway, number 3, column 3, prostaglandin 3s, fatty fish, organic fruits and vegetables, produce. So by eating a lot of organic vegetables, organic low sugar fruits, fatty fish, you lower your inflammatory rate.
Hmm.
So what we do, we often do, we actually take these pathways and we carve out diets that are specified to raise up the anti-inflammatory numbers, drop down the inflammatory numbers, and to convert the neutrals. By the way, I didn't talk about that yet, but they're fatty acids. This is all about good fats. It's all about good fats, but they're healthy fats that are like DGLAs, evening primrose oil, black cumin seed oil, yeah, black currant seed oil. I'm sorry, black currant seed oil, um, evening primrose oil, the borage oil, borage borage oil. So these three, borage oil, evening primrose oil, black currant seed oil, those three are neutral converters. They take the neutral chemistries and they convert them into anti-inflammatory. So I say you increase the anti-inflammatory properties through conversion, through diet, lower the inflammatory foods that we talked about, the egg yolks, the peanuts, the red meat, and the dairy, and you can actually neutralize any of those inflammatory conditions we talked about. And again, 72% of all disease is inflammatory. And we've actually worked with every condition known to man, everything from psoriasis, cancer, heart disease, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus. And you lower the prospect of trouble when you reprogram and reformat the inflammatory chemistry at a dietary level. It's amazing.
Wow. So you take something, and we'll use my example because eczema is, inflammation, right? It's like redness in the
Sure.
skin. And so without even doing the muscle testing, in your years and years of experience, would you say that if I cut out red meat, egg yolk, sugar, dairy, and peanuts, that I would see that dissipate?
I would say that. Absolutely, unequivocally.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, the only one on there I do have some dairy and some egg yolk and some sugar. Not much red meat or peanuts. I have other nuts, but you're saying just peanuts, right?
Yeah, if you do 2 weeks, being really strict with that, really
Mm-hmm.
strict, sugar, etc., I think you see a difference.
Now, would you consider sugar and fruit to be off limits
Well,
too?
we take people off high sugar fruits, high glycemic fruits. In other words, example, Granny Smith apple has 9 grams of sugar. A Red Delicious has 20.
Hmm.
Or, if you think about tropical fruits, 40 grams of sugar per serving, 40.
Wow.
Blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, 6.
Hmm.
So between 6 and 40 grams is quite a swing.
Yeah, that
So
is.
by having the low glycemic fruits, you're limiting the amount of sugar you take in. Much better idea.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Well, I'm going to do this, and I bet you sugar might be the culprit. Definitely get sugar in some of those fruits and things. So, and egg yolks as well. So, what is there any other sort of techniques that you've given some great techniques so far that you've found that are relatively simple that help people to cultivate, the ability to listen deeply, correct imbalances, and of course, access their own capability for healing.
Yes. Again, I go back to what we started talking about, the identity crisis, the spiritual identity crisis. To tap into your source, to tap into your essence, to tap into yourself as pure energy, not as a personality. I think that puts us in a higher frequency, a higher vibrational frequency, to to make good things happen with healing, to make good things happen with miracle making, like I said. And I think that one of the ways that I talk about in the book, take 10 minutes, 10 minutes, go to a mirror and look in the core of your eyes, in the center, in the nucleus of your eyes. Look in your eyes with your eyes. So you're looking into your own eyes, dead center, 10 minutes straight, uninterrupted, and just feel the essence. Just feel the essence of your energy. Just get beyond the personality, get beyond the tissue, get beyond the cells, get beyond the material properties of self, just to feel the essence of your energy, eyeball to eyeball, 10 minutes. It changes you radically. It's a radical shift. It's very powerful exercise.
Yeah. Wow. 10 minutes, huh? That's yeah. Just looking even for a moment, it can be intense, right? So 10 minutes, you can go deep, right?
Let's put it this way. You're right. A lot of people have a struggle with looking in there more than 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a fear factor of the essence of self. I think there's a fear factor with a lot of people identifying with the truth about self. In a way, when you look in your eyes, you're tapping into the source that we talk about, the essence, which kind of dispels the myth of thinking of yourself as a material being. It dispels the myth of your material self. It's more than a lot of people can handle. But you
Yeah.
stick with it, stay with it, and it'll turn out good in the end.
Hmm. Yeah. Interesting. So I'm having worked so so many decades, with people on their own healing journeys. I'm curious how often, or if at all, you've come across any sort of past life or parallel life connection to, a particular issue that someone is facing in their current lifetime.
You know, I did. I had interesting. We talked about that. I think I wrote about this in one of the books. There was a patient who actually had an interesting experience. She had migraine headaches that wouldn't quit. Horrible migraine headaches, the worst. Every day, every single day. Tried everything. Went to the Mayo Clinic, went to Mass General Hospital. Did everything. Went everywhere. No result. No help. So somebody talked her into going to this a woman by the name of Inez Gonzalez. She was from New Mexico, and she was kind of a mystic. And she hypnotized people and got to the bottom of their inflammation, the bottom of their conditions. Interesting story. She took this patient and she took her down into deep hypnosis, into a trance state. And she was recalling a past life where she was at a bar, a cowboy bar, and
Hmm.
she was a barmaid. She was a barmaid, and the two cowboys were drunk and they drew guns at the last second. And one of them recklessly fired the gun off, and it hit her. The bullet hit her in the head. It killed her. But before she died, she had an excruciating pain in her brain that she carried over into two lifetimes. So
Wow.
she was actually coached or healed to release that pain, that memory in her hypnosis. And she worked with Inez, and that hypnosis took her to a place where she let go of the pain, let go of the memory, and her headaches stopped happening.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I know there's a lot of these sorts of, and a few books out there that sort of have lots of these sort of stories. So I figured you must have come across it yourself at some point, and it's like when you can't, some of the traditional things that you've seen work, or you sort of expect to work and then don't. It's like, okay, what is the source
It's
then
a
of this
it's a it's
issue?
it, it's a remarkably mysterious universe. There's some incredible things that have happened in this universe. Some will just defy gravity. Some are just incredible, amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Do you what? How do you foresee the future where um, medicine being concerned? Do you see? Obviously, there's been a trend more towards like some of these um, holistic approaches and even ancient healing modalities being brought back. And I'm curious what you envision, having been on the journey, in the trenches, so to speak, for as long as you have.
I think one of the most important trends that I'm starting to get a sense for is the idea of prevention. I think people are starting to care about, to plan on, to take advantage of, and to think in terms of prevention. It's the idea that a little bit of prevention goes a long way. And I think that when people start thinking in terms of new studies that they see, where a certain food actually limits, or I should say causes problems, or supports the body, either way, plus minus. Like for example, we've studied more and more about sugar. More people are becoming increasingly aware of how sugar creates arteriosclerosis. The number one killer is heart disease. The number one killer is heart disease. And the number one form of heart disease is atherosclerosis, plaques in the arteries. Most people are under the misguided understanding that most heart disease and atherosclerosis is caused by egg yolks and red meat and butter and all that stuff. No, that's not true. Those are the causes of saturated fat and blood clots. They're not the causes of heart disease or atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is caused by sugar. Sugar. Here's why. There's a process the liver engages in called anaerobic glycolysis. The liver takes carbohydrates, sugars, starches, carbs, and it breaks them down into immediately usable energy. And whatever's stored and left over, it converts to three carbon fats. Those fats store in the arteries. So if you take sugar, let's say you take a candy bar, you'll use about 1/4 of that candy bar for energy, about a quarter. 3/4 of that candy bar becomes stored fat. So sugar stores this fat. So we think in terms of fat the wrong way. It's not about bacon and eggs. Bacon and eggs do cause blood clots. Bacon and eggs do cause saturated fat that causes blood clots. But for the most part, atherosclerosis, the backing up of arterial fats, comes from sugar. So I think people need to be careful of sugar. The ideal way to clear up the arteries, the blood fats, prevent heart disease, prevent the number one killer, vegetables and lean proteins. Some more egg whites, egg white omelets, salads with chicken, broccoli, green beans, lettuce with chicken, turkey, and fish, beans, kidney beans, chickpeas, lentils, things like that. Lean protein, low starch vegetables. That's the key.
Hmm. Yeah, I was almost surprised to hear that wheat wasn't on your inflammation list. I mean, is
Well,
that?
in a way, it is. In a way, it is. It's not directly so, but indirectly. In other words, if it's a food allergen, if it's food intolerance, it's an
Yeah,
inflammatory.
got it.
So indirectly, it's inflammatory.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Very, very interesting. So, you know, what if you had one thing to share with this audience that you think is the most pressing, bit of wisdom that you could share, what would it be?
But you are not who you think you are. You spend a lot of time in your life operating from what you suppose is real. And when you identify with self as a young child, and you're weaned by a culture to believe that self is personality based, is material, is cellular, is physical, you're being misguided. And I think most people live that way for a whole lifetime, and then on their deathbed, something different happens. On their deathbed, they become aware of something that in many cases surprises them, shocks them, overwhelms them, whatever you want to say. But I think the objective is to tap into that process, into that truth while we're in the prime of our life, and to tap into the true self, the source that is eternal. You can't see it, you can't taste it, you can't touch it, you can't feel it, but it's essence, it's pure essence, it's energy, it's spirit. And I think to tap into that reality when we're in the prime of our life is the most important thing we can do to advance our consciousness, our ability to heal, produce miracles, to dwell in the realm of miracles, to tap into miracles, to channel miracles, and to elevate our game of life at a higher level.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well said. One of the things I like to ask of my guest, and of course you've shared a few stories already, but I'd love to get a story of synchronicity or serendipity or a positive paranormal story. Wondering if you have something like that you'd care to share.
Well, a number of years ago, I had two boys, two sons, and they're in their 30s, and now they're grown men. But a number of years ago, about 20, 25 years ago, I used to pick my boys up at school at 3 o'clock on a Monday and on a Wednesday, just to take time to play ball, have fun together, tap into each other's fun stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so my son and I were having this lengthy conversation about life beyond, and we just got done watching E.T. and we were talking about the real deal. Well, Dad, do you believe in UFOs? Dad, do you believe in paranormal? Dad, do you believe in ETs? And I said, I kind of do, Nick. And I explained my perspective, my view on that. And we stopped off at home, grabbed a football. After we had that conversation, we were playing catch in the backyard with a football. This is the God's honest truth. I just was at a family reunion this week, and we talked about it at the reunion. We no sooner had that catch with the football. We looked up over the trees. There was a saucer that came up over the trees. True story.
Wow.
So help me God. So help me God. And it came up over the tree line. And he looked at me and I looked at him and he said, Dad, I said, I know, I'm looking right at it myself. I couldn't believe it. And then 2 seconds later, another one came up alongside of it. And then within a matter of seconds, it vanished. True story.
Wow.
So help me God. So help me God.
Wow.
So
Wow.
whether now I can't tell you whether that was the government that was actually experimenting with
Yep.
new potential weaponry or whatever, or whether it was the real deal. But we saw what we saw, and there were clearly two saucers like I've never seen before in my life. Just the craziest thing I've ever seen. And
Wow.
I called the police. I called the police. Police said we were getting bombarded with calls. So they
Oh,
were
wow.
there. A lot of people were calling in about it. So we know we weren't alone. At least we edified we weren't
Mhm.
crazy, you know. But
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
yeah.
thought the amazing part of that. We just had the conversation about ET and about that being
Yeah.
real, and then that happened in this like an hour after we had that conversation. I said, "This is crazy." Talk about
Yeah,
synchronicity.
that is quite the synchronicity for those two things to happen hand in hand.
I actually I had brunch with Deepak Chopra one day, and he said, "Mark, it's not synchronicity; it's synchrodestiny."
Yes, yes. I love that. I love that synchrodestiny. I feel like I've heard them say that before. Um, that is a great way to put it, and to sort of highlight the unique type of synchronicity it is in a way.
Yes, it
Um,
is.
what what do, what are your thoughts on all the? It's really interesting to watch all of the sort of disclosure things that are starting to happen, where you have, the government now acknowledging they don't know what these craft are. Do you think it's leading us to a, more um, definitive disclosure event?
I mean, I think you can kind of feel it. I think I can kind of feel it. I think we're, when you think about the course of my lifetime, I think back over my lifetime, we went from a period where nobody dared talk about it because it was all totally bunk, to a time where people started talking about it because maybe it was possible, to a time where everybody's expecting it now. We're at a point now
Yeah,
where the consciousness has shifted radically. I mean, people are just waiting for the day, you know.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think we're I think we're there. I think we've opened up considerably, and I think we're ready. I think we're definitely ready.
yeah.
I
I agree.
think it's gonna happen within the next decade,
Yeah, yeah,
maybe sooner than that.
yeah. I had a dear friend who he just finished school as a doctor. He was set to start his practice in here in Los Angeles. He went down um, to South America to spend some time with Aboriginal community. Spent like 3 months, and it changed everything for him so much that he came back, packed up all his stuff, and moved down there officially, and is now working as a sort of step forward. I just saw him post about a big conference that he was a part of, where he's announcing that he's going to work with this particular tribe in order to help them with their whole medical system. And this guy, completely turned his life upside down. I mean, he walked the talk for sure. Such a good, solid guy. I think his dad is a doctor too. And he came back from his first trip down there, and he had done some plant medicine while he was there, ayahuasca, and he said he had had a profound experience where he was sort of shown so many details about things from his mother's passing, the day it happens, and what it looks like, and then seeing all his previous lives as a uh, you know tribal man or woman, throughout many, many lifetimes, which is why he's playing this bridge role in this lifetime. Uh, you know, and one of the things that he said he experienced was being shown that major disclosure is coming, and these beings communicated with him that this would happen on 2/22/22. So,
Really? Is that right?
I
222,
don't. Yeah, it's not very long, is it? And he
Not at
was
all.
I mean, this is a guy I've never known to really take recreational substance, just as solid can be. And now
I
has
like that.
dedicated his
I'm
whole
gonna, I'm
life.
gonna pay attention on 222,
Yeah,
22.
exactly. So I'm giving you a little heads up that he was convinced it's happening. So we'll see. Oh, this has been great. Thank you so much for taking the time,
Great
Dr.
to be with
Mincolla.
you. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yeah, what is the best way for people who would like to connect and follow your work? Is the best way for them to do so?
A couple things. They can watch the movie The Way of Miracles by logging on to thewayofmiracles.com. So that's thewayofmiracles.com. Simple. That'll show you the film. Great film. It's worth to watch. Number two, they can actually get the book at Amazon. Amazon is a pretty easy way to get the book. Number three, my you can tap into my work at markmincolla.com. That's M-A-R-K, Mark with a K, Mincolla with two L's, MINCOLLA.com.
Perfect. Perfect. I do have one last question for you today,
Sure.
and it is this. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Dr. Mark Mincolla?
The meaning of life is to advance our awareness of our consciousness, to become aware of our consciousness, to become aware of the fact that we are consciousness. The universe isn't separate. The universe isn't a place. It's not like the galaxy. It's not like a neighborhood. The universe is what we are. We are the universe. We are consciousness. We fill up the universe with consciousness. And to tap into that reality and to express it and to emanate from it and to live from that place is why we're here.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you so much for all the work that you do and trailblazing for all these many, many years. Dr. Mincolla, it has been a pleasure to connect with you today.
Thanks, Ben. Pleasure's been mine.
And all of you out there listening, thank you for tuning your beautiful brainwaves and incredible hearts into another episode. Until next time, journey well. Also, before we sign off, I wanted to remind you to download the Golden Key audio or ebook as my free gift to you at goldenkey.gift using the Golden Key code POSITIVEHEAD. And please, if you enjoy my gift, leave a positive review on Amazon so others can find the book and unlock their lives with the help of the Golden Key as well.